Here we are on the Chapter 2 final review of negative numbers and the number line. If you are in your Book A, Chapter 2 starts on page 42. Lesson 1 starts on page 45. First, you can see the big idea for the chapter. We haven't gone over that since the beginning of the year, but negative numbers are the opposites of positive numbers. For every positive number, there is a corresponding negative number. And then we have our Christian worldview where the number line depicts infinity. We can give glory to God for how his works are displayed through his language of math. And we have the confidence in the accuracy of our math answers when we follow appropriate rules such as order of operation because God established noble truth in mathematics. This recall prior knowledge is what you could do before you even did this chapter at the beginning of the year, and now you certainly should be able to do these. Make sure you review the vocabulary words of absolute value, negative number, and opposite before your final as well. And finally, as we're going through these, if you already would have been able to solve the problem and you didn't get it wrong before as we were going through it, you can put a check. But if you could not have solved it without help, maybe you need an S marked beside that, whereas you need to study that a little bit more, or an E for maybe making sure you need to do some extra problems on that. So beside each of the checkboxes that we go through in a little bit, you're going to put check, S, or E. So you can see this first section, we're going to review recognizing the use of positive and negative numbers in real world situations. So if you go to the guided practice on page 46, you will see these real world numbers right here. Okay, you'll want to turn your book there because I'm not going to leave this on the screen. So you're going to want to answer the questions 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 based on that data. So 5 says New Orleans is 8 feet above or below sea level is what you're going to write. And since it's a negative 8 for New Orleans, we're going to write below sea level. Number 6, Mount Davidson is blank feet above sea level. So we go to Mount Davidson, California in the chart. It's at 928. So we don't write 928 feet, which we could. That would make sense. But we can write also above. So then if we go back to number 5, we can also write negative 8 feet, but it would be below sea level. Number 7, the deepest location among the 4, so that would be the farthest negative number, is Death Valley, California, at negative 282 feet. And then so on. Number 8, the highest location would be Pilot Mountain because it's at 2,421 feet above sea level. And the location nearest to sea level is the one that's closest to 0. So you'll see we have negative 8, negative 282, and then 928. Some of you might be thinking it's 928 because it's positive, but negative 8 is actually only 8 away from 0. So I would put the location down, which is New Orleans, Louisiana. Okay. Then representing negative numbers on a number line, we kind of reviewed this in the first chapter. But negative numbers, remember, on a horizontal number line are further to the left on the number line. So if I had negative 5 here, negative 4, this would be negative 3. Still need to make sure I have even spacing, 0, and then I'd go to the positive numbers, 2, 3, and this would be 4. So if I said to dot all the odd numbers, that is what you should look like, negative 5, negative 3, negative 1, 1, and 3. And if I did the same thing vertically, negative 5 would be down here, and then negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, the spacing between doesn't matter as long as you can fit them all on your number line, and the spacing is equal according to your intervals. So if I have 1 in between 3 and 4 right here, then I have to have 1 in between the ones that are 1 apart going down the rest of my number line. Okay, remember 0 is neither positive nor negative. And 0 is its own opposite. So if I were to ask you what's the opposite of 4, you would give me -4. Okay, and then we have statements of inequality. So I might do something like, is a -4 greater or less than 4? And you would say it's less than. And then interpreting and explaining statements of order for positive and negative numbers in real world situations. The Learn section for that is right here on page 50. And we're going to go right over here to the guided practice for those. So we're going to do number 26 on page 51. Which says the elevation of the Valdez Peninsula, which is negative 131 feet, is less than the elevation of the Caspian Sea, which is negative 92 feet. So I'm just rewriting that statement. And right now, I mean, to make sure I look at it, is negative 131 less than negative 92? And the answer is yes. If it helps you, you can circle that to see it. Then in this chapter, we moved into absolute value. So lesson 2.2 is on page 54. So remember, absolute value is the distance a number is to 0. So -2, the absolute value would be equal to 2. If I had the absolute value of 2, that would be equal to 2. Whereas if I had the absolute value of 2 that's negative, this would be equal to -2, because I take the absolute value of 2 first and get 2, and then I put the negative symbol back on. Okay, so these are all saying the same thing, that I have 0 right here, and 2 is 2 away from 0, just like -2 is 2 away from 0. Okay, and then we're going to turn to page 56 and do number 13. So this is using absolute value in real world problems. So here we have Joe owing his sister Lisa $12 and his sister Kelly $18. But his brother David owes him $20. So Joe owes this amount to his sister, this amount to a different sister, but a brother owes him that amount. So Joe writes the number -12 to represent the amount he owes Lisa. So should he use -18 to represent the amount he owes his other sister then? Because these are both amounts owing. And then the amount that Joe should give him would be, that his brother David should give Joe, should be represented by a positive. So who owes the most money? Do we have Joe that owes the most money? Because he owes a combination of these two, 12 plus the absolute value of -18, which is 12 plus 18. So $30. And then we have David, who owes the absolute value of 20, which is just 20. So we can see that Joe owes more money.